Hello everybody and welcome to Ed's Boat. Firstly, before we get started, just want to apologise for not putting a video up for a few weeks. I've been in bed with the dreaded lurgy, I've been quite ill. But I'm back on my feet now, over the worst, and ready to get back on the boat. But you haven't tuned in to listen to my hardships, have you? No. What's this big news I was on about? Well, it's good news and bad news, really. Which one do you want first? The bad news. Everybody wants the bad news first. Well, the bad news is this. Well, without messing about and putting too fine a point on it and beating about the bush and going on and on and on about it, in a nutshell, sort of straight to the point in that kind of way, in a sort of roundabout type way, I have run out of money. It's as simple as that. The coffers are empty. Now, don't start going out buying bottles of bleach to drink and buying rope to hang yourself with. I'm not stopping the videos. I am not selling the boat. Certainly not going to swap it for a van. Who would do that? It's a cash flow problem. Allow me to sort of elaborate a bit more. Cast your mind back to when I was at Norton Junction and I stopped there, turned around and came home. Well, I wasn't supposed to stop there and come home. I was supposed to carry on and explore new and big things. But I had a phone call from Mrs. Ed who said, you'd better turn around and come home quickly. Nothing was wrong, nobody was ill or anything like that. There was something that needed my attention. Mrs. Ed had found us a new house. Now, I didn't know we'd lost one, but I ended up going to look at it and we bought it. So all my finances have gone into that project in the short term and I've had to pull the plug on this project. So there is some money left in the budget to carry on with stuff I'm committed to already, but in the future we might be going down the reclaimed materials route, scrounging parts, cost cutting to try and get it finished until my finances build back up again. But this new property will allow me to pursue my other hobbies and interests. I have many of those. So this may lead to a new YouTube channel. I'll announce that much later on. Nothing to do with boats, just everything else I'm interested in. Right, so that's the announcement out of the way. Back to this episode though. What was it I was trying to do? Oh yeah, it's getting colder and I need to sort something out that I've been putting off for quite a while.
The time has come to move the stove out of the way. I'm going to lift it up from there and put it over by the cooker, get rid of that wooden board that it's been sitting on temporarily and build a hearth for it. But before I do that, I have to remove the temporary flue that I put in, which I'm not looking forward to because every time I've removed it so far I've ended up with soot in my face or down my neck or something like that. So I have been putting this job off for a little while because it's messy and heavy. The next thing to do was to build a wooden frame, and this wooden frame round the outside is going to be the size of the hearth obviously, and the tiles are actually going to come to the edge of it. The wood I'm using is for exterior use and it's been weather treated, so I don't have to bother with any damp getting through from the floor and stuff like that. It's actually quite cheap because it's rough wood. In the middle of that I put insulating block. This is calcium silicate block. For those of you who watched Journey with Jono's video, it's what he used for his. This is slightly more compressed, or a slightly more compressed version of it. It looks a little bit more solid actually, so I'm quite pleased about that. Not too flaky or powdery. And I've used that as an insulating block in the middle. Now I didn't need to do that. I've done that just in case I fracture a brick in the stove or something like that and I do get a hot spot. This is just an extra layer of protection. The underside of the stove doesn't get particularly hot. You can put your hand under it even if, after it's been on for many hours. But I've done this just as a safety precaution and I don't think it would do any harm to do this anyway. So the next thing, now I've put the insulation blocks in and made the wooden frame, well, we've got to do a job I've never done before. And that job is tiling. These are the tiles I've used. Don't worry, that's not what they look like, that's the back of them. They look like that. These are, I'm going to put 4 floor tiles in. They're a little bit thicker than normal tiles, obviously a good size. And because I'm going to put a stove on top of them, I needed to make sure that everything was nice and level. I can't have any low spots or high spots so where the tiles might get an uneven pressure because stoves are quite heavy. So I'm happy that that's all right. So the thing to do now is to start putting tiles down. So what you're about to see is my first ever go at tiling. Okay, I've got my adhesive and grout. This actually doubles up as adhesive and grout. I've got that. The only reason I picked this one is it's the only one I could get in a 5 litre tub, because I've got a bit more tiling to do later on, if this works out okay. So I'm going to put that on, and I've been brushing up on it on the internet, and as far as I can see, you just dollop it on and spread it about without making a mess. So I've got my spreader. Let's have a go. Okay, I have spread the adhesive out on it, and the spreader has cutouts in it which give these lines, and that's supposed to give you the right allocated amount of adhesive to fix your tiles on by scraping it through. I've just washed it so you can see these a bit clearer. Right, the next thing to do is just to grab some tiles and place them on. Okay, that's my first tile down, but I'm going to use some spacers, and these allow the grouting that you put down to go in nicely. So I'm going to put one in the middle for the centre, because it's going to be 4, and that will hold all 4 corners in, and then the rest of them will space between the tiles and hopefully make it all look lovely and neat. So tile number 2, I place that up against that corner piece that I've just put in. Drop it down onto the adhesive, and then put a spacer in there. These are 5mm spacers I'm using, which is quite normal for floor tile spacing, but if it was sort of wall spacers, you might want to go down to sort of 2 or 3mm spacers. But this is 5 for the time being, and it's not working out too badly so far. So that's 2. Now the third one. That looks pretty good. Put the spacer in. Just jiggle it around a bit. Wipe my hand because I've got a little bit of adhesive on there. And then the last one, I shall just place straight in, up against the corner piece. Push it in together. Up against the side. Press it down. We're going to move these around a little bit in a second just to settle them, but hopefully it won't be a problem. Like I say, this is my first ever try at it, and it's not going too badly so far. Of course, there's always time to mess it up. So now I just have to jiggle these to line them up a little bit so the centres line up nicely, and they line up top to bottom as well. You get a little while to sort of move the tiles around into where you want them so they match up, and after a little while the adhesive will start to grab them and make it difficult. So I've got all my spacers in, I'm happy with that. Centre piece is in. I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on them to settle them top to bottom. I want that little bit of mess off there. And then with my screwdriver, I'm just going to make sure that that centrepiece is down all the way so it doesn't interfere with the grout, which it is. And that's it. Have to wait 10-15 minutes for the adhesive to sort of go off, and then I can take these plastic spacers out. Okay, it's about 20 minutes later. I'm happy that everything's gone down well. Just need to remove these spacers. It's 24 hours later and the adhesive has gone off nicely. It's nice and solid. So it's time to do the grouting. Now the adhesive I used is grouting as well, but for this particular set of tiles I'm going to use black grouting. So I've got some black grout here and a mixer. So we're just going to add some water and start mixing it together. Okay, I ended up transferring it into a slightly different container because mixing it was very difficult. Very difficult to get the lumps out of it, and it doesn't mix very well at all, so I really had to work at it. And I'm going for a consistency as thick as I can, with it retaining a slightly watery finish on the top, and then that way I know it will get right into the gaps. So the next thing to do is get some on my squeegee and work it in to the gaps. Okay, I've wiped it in and then levelled it off with a squeegee, and it's best to use a sponge for this, but I haven't got a sponge, so I'm just going to use a damp cloth. I'm going to wipe off the worst of the excess without going into the joins, just to clean the tiles up, because this will stop a lot of heartache later on. So we'll clean those up first, and then we'll quickly and lightly wipe the joins. Okay, that's sort of wiped in and settled, and the surface of the join has been sort of smoothed in and made level, get rid of any air bubbles, this sort of thing. I need to leave this for a little while now and then go back and wash it down again. Okay, it's 24 hours later. The tiles are down and the grouting has gone off, and for my first go, not bad at all. What I did was just wiped it down lightly with a damp cloth, cleaned it all up, allowed it to go off overnight, gave it a quick wash this morning to get rid of any sort of mess that was left over, and it is done. So I'm quite pleased with that. But while that was drying, I was building this. This is the back part of it, and this will be tiled again. I used 25mm calcium silicate board, but behind this one there is a 10mm gap. It's actually 14mm, but they recommend a 10mm gap, 25mm of insulating board, and then you can tile on the front of it, this sort of thing. So I put that on. Now that is ready to be tiled. Well, there you have it. That are the tiles put on. Now I didn't film myself doing it because time was against me, and I did struggle a bit with these because these are rustic tiles and they go up in brickwork type fashion, so they're offset every other one, and I've set them in a pattern that sort of symbolises smoke going up the chimney, and I thought that might look nice with those three colours. They're all in. I've got some of the spaces, I used 2mm spacers this time, some of the spaces left in. I need to get those out quick before the adhesive goes too hard, and then clean up any spilled bits, because I did make quite a mess. Okay, another 24 hours later and it's all gone nice and solid. So I'm ready to put the grout on. Now the adhesive I'm using is adhesive and grout, so I can just use the same stuff, get it onto my squeegee and just start working it into the gaps. Okay, the grout has been on for about 20 minutes now, and it's time to get a damp sponge, not wet, damp, and start cleaning off the excess. Okay, that's the first wipe over done, and it's got rid of all the excess. I'm going to leave that to dry for another 20 minutes, then just another quick wash over with a damp sponge, and then it'll just be left to dry. Alright, that's all the tiling done. The base of the hearth is in and gone nice and hard. Just need to let this harden up. I'm going to leave that for a few days before I do anything else to the hearth. But I'm quite pleased with the way it's turned out.
That's it for this episode. In the next episode, I'll be carrying on with that hearth, putting the fireplace in, getting a flue going, see if we can get the stove working again. Don't worry though, I am not going to fold this channel up. After that announcement, I am still going to carry on with the boating channel, doing as much as I ever did, but finances are going to be a little bit on the tight side. It might have to change the way we go about certain things. But that's about as much as it comes to. But I'm quite excited about all this going on, but I am very, very busy as a result. And I'll try and upload as many videos as I can to keep you guys sort of still informed in what's going on. So, take care, and I'll see you soon.